The title of this evening's presentation is called The Art of the Maker, Craft, Design and Technology in the 21st Century. So this talk is about craft, and it's also its relation to design and technology. And over the last century, craft has evolved as a way of thinking about making things. It has been such an important bridge between art, design and industrial design, and yet so undervalued and overlooked. And in its applications and products, we can see both in the home, in the gallery, in the factory, or in a hospital ward. And it is also the age-old techniques and crafts traditions that demonstrate fundamental benchmarks in material culture that are the foundation for today's high-quality printing and fabrication methods, and for the future. And also where robotics and artificial intelligence are increasingly playing a prominent role. So how to make things, how to manipulate materials, which is fundamental to understanding what it is also about being human. I'd also like to include some case studies from our research centre, the Centre for Fine Print Research. And I hope to demonstrate the centre's multidisciplinary approach to image making and fabrication, which is central to our core research. So this talk will present how transformative technologies and novel print processes can be used as a bridge between the handmade knowledge of materials, the analog and digital fabrication, and the physical and tactile surfaces that are important for a rich and diverse material culture. So what is craft and its relevance in the 21st century? Craft has a tendency to be considered as rooted in the past, but craft also bridges so many aspects of design and technology. Traditional craft practice in historic industrial production using indigenous materials is also at risk, and in the UK there is an endangered list of crafts that are becoming lost. And this is an aspect that I'd like to return to in my lecture. How can heritage crafts be reinvigorated through new technology? So what have we been doing during a global pandemic and lockdown? During the many days when households were stuck indoors, we had a renewed interest in cooking, in DIY, and of course craft. Otherwise termed as crafting, home craft, handicrafts, or people as hobbyists, the Sunday painter. Many generations, both old and young, have explored craft classes, studied how-to books, attended summer schools, all in search of new techniques and inspiration. And according to the UK's largest arts and crafts retailer, Hobbycraft, online sales during COVID-19 increased as much as 400% for some craft projects. And at the top of these craft top list was knitting and sewing, with more novel crafting activities such as amigurumi, or Japanese crochet and macrame, which saw sort of around 100% increase. However, we are so familiar with the term craft that we kind of assume that we know what it is. We know that craft cuts across cultures and ages and disciplines, but it's difficult to verbalize. And in order to thoroughly obtain a new skill, it's dependent on the application of knowledge that is practiced and developed over time. Craft has been called anachronistic, contradictory, outmoded, yet utterly contemporary, edgy and radical. It is high art and vernacular. It is purposeful and mindful, yet hobbyist and decorative. In the digital age, it has managed a tactile materiality, but has also embraced and is connected to new technologies. Craft has also been framed by making things by hand and the tools to make them. Tools are crucial to making, but knowing how to use them is vital, is important. And in response to a quote by Abraham Lincoln, "Give me 6 hours to chop down a tree and I will spend the first 4 sharpening the axe," was a project organised by Sophie Boone's researcher at the CF, and researchers at the Centre for Fine Print Research were given the challenge, "Let's talk tools." We were asked, what 3 tools are important to your practice? And what was interesting to note about the group is that although we work with digital tools, a lot of our practice is still firmly embedded in the craft of making using analog tools alongside digital ones. As long ago as 10 years ago, in an exhibition, the V&A introduced the term craft back into the vocabulary. And through this exhibition, The Power of Making highlighted the relationship between materials, hands, tools, and tacit knowledge, thus transforming craft into cool. So what is craft and why does it matter? Why do we make things? Daniel Charney describes making as critical for survival or a way of learning. Thomas Thwaites, writer of the Toaster Project, or a heroic attempt to build a simple electronic appliance from scratch, asks, do we actually know how things are made? Robert Pirsig, writer of Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, asked how to fix things if they are broken. Furniture maker Peter Korn, in his book, Why We Make Things and Why It Matters, believed that caring about what you do is a moral imperative. And Richard Sennett, author of The Craftsman, suggests it is an enduring basic human impulse, the desire to do a job well for its own sake. Of course, what Sennett was also saying is that doing a good job is not related to craft, but to any field. Korn describes his motivation for accomplishment, which is to gain a sense of meaning and fulfillment. And it seems that making is also loaded with human values, such as pride, as problem solving, self-transformation, and the desire to do well for its own sake. And it is the problem solving, the critical thinking, the reflection that moves the hobbyist or the amateur to the skilled. So what do we mean by being skilled? It seems to be a precondition for all making, but at best seems to be taken for granted. And it is only through the difficult process of acquiring a skill that skill as such emerges. So skill is not simply about doing something repetitively, but depends on the judgment and the care and the dexterity which the maker exercises as he works. Here the important factor is tacit knowledge, unspoken, acquiring a deep knowledge that cannot be explained, but is embodied through practice and responding to materials and tools. Our understanding of materials and the process of making is multisensory and built up of a library of recognition over time. When we look at a material, we use different perceptions to gauge how it feels through sight and touch and audio. We can discriminate if something is wrong through a change in vibration or the change in pitch of a drill when encountering a knot on wood. And the rhythmic cutting by printmaker and filmmaker Won Jin Ho, called Mini Mokuhanga film, records the process of cutting and printing a wood block, and also the ambient noises of around her surroundings and the noises of the different tools she uses on the wood block. How might skills be transferred between experts of different disciplines, and how might they learn from each other? Roger Kneebone, Professor of Surgical Education at Imperial College London, gained a 2-year Wellcome Foundation Fellowship to explore the surgical overlaps with the world of art, performance, and craftsmanship. And in this film, he and Joshua Byrne of Taylor's Byrne and Burge explored the similarities between their very different professions. So from these two pictures, the connection, there is a connection through sewing, but more importantly, the aesthetics and synergies of sewing garments and people together. For a body recovering from surgery would certainly not want to be left with an ugly scar tissue. Likewise, a person getting dressed for the day would prefer to wear clothes that fitted their body and make them feel good. In their broadest objective, the surgeon and the tailor need to ensure their clients appear and feel body confident. So in this film, they talk about their tools, straight needles for flexible fabric and curved needles for surgeons in order to reach behind a difficult organ. There is an awareness of achieving a balance between texture, tension, and flexibility of material or skin, and how a material might react to different cuts, how to work with different fabrics, tension versus pliability of skin and organs, and how to join one part to another, and the limits of stretching and easing. Angie Butler at the Centre for Fine Print Research is interested in methodologies that explore ways of demonstrating, articulating and sharing embodied craft knowledge. For example, using her own expertise in letterpress printing to explain the motion and force, the need of how to tighten a coin, locking a letterpress form into the bed of a printing press, or the correct amount of ink and how it sounds when it's being inked. So how might she translate these movements that have been learned and acquired over many years into something that is measurable and transferable? So to do this, she's recording the sensory experiences of craft people via various methods and technologies, such as digital body monitoring, video and sonic technologies, which are live, in progress activities, and also using practitioner interviews to see if she can evidence and share embodied knowledge transfer. Evidencing and disseminating these methodologies via digital technologies places knowledge and sharing at the centre of whole new social and collaborative technological activities that could lead to a greater understanding of how digital and immersive technologies may be designed to align with existing maker practices in the future. So Homo Faber is a conference dedicated to the celebration of craft. Unfortunately, its last event was hosted in 2018 and last year it had to be cancelled. So we really hope that it will be coming back. But at this conference, experts from around Europe discussed a whole range of topics, including the relationship between traditional skills and the digital world, the challenges of communicating about craftsmanship, and the importance of passing on artisanal skills in order to ensure their future. The role of the craftsperson is an opportunity to make something unique. So how does that sit within a design and manufacturing process? Over the last decade, we've experienced new bespoke ways of mass production for the single consumer. And when Neil Gershenfeld of MIT's Center for Bits and Atoms was asked by his students, what is digital fabrication good for? His answer was the ability to personalize, producing products for a market of one person. And this has included all sorts of printing and packaging trends, such as personalized Coke cans, where shoppers were found to be hunting through shelves to find a can with their name on it, or original origami chocolate bar wrappers designed by an Israeli-based company which created unlimited pattern wrappers. And once you'd eaten the contents, it provided instructions on how to fold your wrapper into an origami cow. Of course, personalization can be used for much more significant applications, such as clothing, medicine, food and prosthetics, facial and cranial reconstruction, and more recently printed COVID masks, and an external cast for a broken arm, of which could be suitable for areas which are difficult to fix in your body. In order to understand human and machine interaction better, Google asked us to submit doodles of objects via Quick Draw. It asked us to draw an image of a written word or a phrase in under 20 seconds. It kind of provided a fascinating insight into the terribleness of people's drawings, but also the broader implications of how robots can self-learn over time. It also demonstrated just how difficult it is to develop and train robots to draw. These new robots, artificial intelligence or AI, defined as algorithms that mimic human intelligence, authors have called into question the implication of robots and creativity. The primary question is, why would anyone want to use computers to make things? Is it for commercial or curiosity, or another tool to extend creativity? And so far, it has been the input of the artist as author to write the script and coding, and who still masterminds the actions of the robot. So all in all is traceable back to the human's desire to create. However, computers, robotics, and AI also present new ways and new possibilities that can take us in a whole different direction and open up new styles of creative expression. Can robots become hobby painters that, by through hours of training as we do, learn how to create their own stylistic mark, which could be completely different to a human's approach to painting and drawing? And here we have an example of collaboration between calligrapher Jessica Ho from Hong Kong Design Polytechnic and Fabio Dagnano, who used the visual programming language of Grasshopper to mimic the arm and hand gestures of brushstrokes. Returning to Sennett's book, The Craftsman, he says, "The greatest dilemma faced by the modern artisan craftsman is the machine." So where he compares the craftsman's desire to make by hand, incorporating variety and flaws versus the anxiety of the rigorous perfection of the machine. He describes two different types of machines, that of the replicant that mimics human functions in order to best serve our needs, such as pacemakers and artificial limbs, or as a robot, a machine that is more of an extension of our physical self, but larger and stronger, that works faster but never tires, such as printing presses and paper mills and computers. And as Sennett explains, the replicant shows us as we are, the robot as we might be. So in the 21st century, the purpose of making at the CFPR is to create new ways of engagement for industrial applications and methods of making, but with a firm understanding of the traditional skills, combining old and new materials. The important factor is how to visualize what one is going to try and do and all the skills that are required. This may require testing and prototyping through different methodologies, and it also requires a set of people from different backgrounds to come together to create a product. Our interests and activities at the Centre is based on a highly pragmatic field in developing technologies and methods that can help to reinvigorate old technologies using new and old materials and digital methods to explore new innovation. So I've already shown you some examples from colleagues at the Centre, Won Jin Ho, Angie Butler, Fabio Dagnano and Verity Winslow, but I would also like to show a few case studies of how craft skills and materials are having an application and impact on manufacturing. So Taus Jorgensen's research interests in exploring new digital design and fabrication technologies. And within this broad theme, Taus has a particular interest in the use of low-cost 3D printing, which has become increasingly accessible. He's using 3D printing to explore a clay extrusion process, where clay extrusion was developed in the 19th century to make bricks and other ceramic architectural parts, and is still used extensively in the ceramic industry. However, this has seen very little development. So what he's been doing is using customized visual scripts and a range of extrusion profiles or dies, which you can see on the left, which can be quickly made and tested. And this, as we said, is a very particular interest for architects and building companies. Dave Hewson and Steve Hoskins have been pioneering ceramic 3D printing production and traditional craft skills. And with a background in industrial ceramics, Dave's research has led to inventing a novel and unique method of 3D printing ceramics that were previously impossible. The Glassworks project was another exploration by Jorgensen of low-cost 3D printers for glass investment casting. This involved a sandpit week involving a whole range of different experts from architecture, physics, engineering, chemistry, art, pottery, weaving, ceramics, graphic design, and fashion design. And although the models and molds are single-use and disposable, they constitute the core tools in the process. These tools present an an entirely new way in the production of glass artifacts, from creative expressions, precise structures for such applications as urine-powered fuel cells. And here we have the Bristol Bioenergy Centre within the Bristol Robotics Laboratory, exploring glass casting for more efficient microbial fuel cell technology. MFCs are in fact bioelectrical chemical energy systems that convert the energy locked in organic matter, such as urine, wastewater, or P-power. Advances in printing and paper and textile electronics using low-cost and accessible electronics is another exciting area. And in this instance is a project exploring different musical instruments. So here we're exploring printable graphene circuits, paper folding, paper engineering, molds for paper pulp to create a different sort of form of musical interface. Laura Morgan is exploring biomaterials and digital laser processing techniques for the coloration and surface finishing of textiles. She's focusing on improving sustainability and efficiency that contributes to the circular economy by mixing design and material science has resulted in a whole new toolbox of laser textile design techniques. Jewellery designer and maker Sophie Boons is responding to issues around the mining of gemstones and is investigating opportunities and challenges of laboratory-grown crystals. This worldwide jewellery industry is quite fearful of a significant disruption to the market by these so-called fakes, but there is increasing environmental damages due to mining and obviously the cost in human life. So Sophie's work is timely in producing bespoke crystals that can be grown and as integral to the piece of jewellery. Trained as an architect, Fabio Dagnano's interest has explored the crossovers between digital tools for art, architecture and crafts, and he's been working on computer-based modelling, rapid prototyping and the use of sensors and electronics embedded in 3D printed tactile objects to help visually impaired people to navigate and recall information about the history of architecture or as a cultural object in a museum. In addition to cultural heritage, we're also exploring tactile printing for visually impaired to ask, what does a city or a building feel like? We're exploring paper-based products and maps designed for single use, which can then be recycled or taken away as a souvenir. This idea of a tactile memento offers new opportunities that can transform an inert replica into a smart object that connects to phones, computers, museum, the Internet of Things or other places. It can be used as a container for storing or conveying information, or as a tactile replica that can include extra sensory experiences beyond touch, for example, smell and sound and stories. Jed Hammerman is working with Craven Dunhill and Company, which was established in 1872. The factory is part of the Ironbridge Gorge World Heritage Site in the north of England and is at the heart of Britain's Industrial Revolution. Jed has been exploring non-destructive 3D scanning and fabrication methods to restore ceramic glazed historic wall tiles. And this is a highly traditional industrial craft product and is at risk because the craftspeople are coming to the end of their life. So current restoration methods involve removing the glazed tiles from the walls, which then potentially damages the work along with the surrounding area. But Jed has been using 3D software to reverse engineer the original surface captured from a 3D scanner and speed up the process of renovating heritage ceramics by bringing production techniques in line with the 21st century. So to conclude, in the 21st century, we're experiencing a new creative shift in craft, design and technology. As creative practitioners, we know that craft has never really gone away, and European craft manufacturers, from makers of luxury handbags high-end furniture, and even supercars are exploring how 3D printing, robots, and AI can be combined with their craft and still maintain that craft identity. Just as other tools have been essential throughout the history of art and craft, we can exploit digital tools, new materials, and new technologies, seeking ways to revive and reinvigorate the process of making that and enrich our material culture. As demonstrated throughout this presentation, there are all sorts of synergies between different professions that present opportunities for technological solutions and many possible overlaps and solutions that are yet to be found. I'd like to acknowledge all the academics and technical staff and research staff at the Centre for Fine Print Research. Please do check out our website and news pages about upcoming events. And last but not least, announcement that Impact Printmaking Conference will be returning to Bristol next year. And we would like to extend an invitation to you to visit us here in Bristol in person or online. Thank you for listening.